Since the beginning of this set, it's been very difficult to actually play creatively and flexible. And right now, we have another meta where 3 costs like Kai'Sa and other comps like Yasuo reroll are just like too dominant, and it's really hard to have good games if you want to play creative or flexible. But what if I told you that currently there are 29 hidden comps that you can play, regularly, and still have excellent games? And I'm not talking about Kai'Sa, Yasuo, no, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about comps that you probably never played before. And I spent a good amount of time crossing the data between meta TFT and tactics dump tools in order to have the best comp, the best version with the best items and the best augments for each of these comps. I guarantee you, after this video, never again you will be a meta slave in this set, because you have too many different comps that you can play and win with. Without further delays, let's jump into the 1-hour video that will teach you all the hidden comps you can play on TFT set 8.5. Let's go! Let's start right away with the 1 cost comp with Ashe reroll. So for this comp you want to play only if you have laser focus. This is necessary. There is another version with Renekton carry, but honestly right now it's less optimized, and you don't even stuff Renekton with AD or attack speed, you stuff Renekton with tank items, so it just means that the Renekton carry augment is not that great. That's why this comp is only good with Ashe laser focus. The other 2 augments that you want are featherweights, obviously, kinda makes sense, and laser core heart, so you can activate 6 laser core later. If you don't have laser core, you can still activate 5, it's fine. Instead, you can try to get something like Thrill of the Hunt or Celestial Blessing, because as you can see, your Ashe is very glass cannon, meaning that she doesn't have any tool to defend herself with sustain or any defensive items. So for this comp, the way you want to play it is to reroll at level 5 to find 3-star Blitzcrank, 3-star Ashe. At level 5, so you want, of course you don't have Mordekaiser, you don't have Warwick, and also you don't have a Sivir. This is how you want to play, because in the early game, having 3 laser core instead of 2 sure shot is much more valuable, because Ashe will deal much more damage with the laser core. After you can add Sivir, after you can add Warwick and Mordekaiser, once you have found everything at 3-star. These, according to the stats, these are the best item for Ashe, because you want to have Last Whisper, you want to have Renan's Hurricane to deal more damage to multiple targets, and Deathblade is almost mandatory on Ashe because it gives so much AD. And during her spell, she gains more AD, so that means that she can get like hundreds of AD and deal an insane amount of damage. Alright, this is for this comp. Now we are going to talk about Flaming Ricochet. So this is the Gangplank carry augment that allows him to deal damage with his spell on multiple targets. I mean 2 targets basically. The second one having a bit less damage. But anyway, the way you want to play this comp is with super, and then you want to build a Nox Force frontline. That way Gangplank will have enough time to deal a good amount of damage, and also honestly don't underestimate the damage of the other units with super, especially if you have something like Battle Mage. This is probably the best augment for this comp, because as you can see, almost everyone is having access to this bonus. So even if you put Vi here, I put Vi here because like you have too many melee units, so I'm thinking like maybe I should put some units in the backline to, you know, have a bit more space. So the items for Gangplank, it's very simple. You want to have blue buff, Jerry Gauntlet, Hand of Justice. That's a full crit build and allows him to deal a lot of damage with the blue buff and killing targets and then reshooting again and again and again. Then for the other defensive items, so when you play defensive items like this, you have 2 tanks to think about. You have the main tank and the off tank. So the main tank is Malphite. That's why you want to put Warmog, Dragon's Claw, Bramble Vest. That way it will be extremely hard to kill him. And the off tank will be here to provide some kind of utility and heal. So Fiora will be the perfect off tank by having Redemption, Sunfire, Ionic Spark. The reason why I put Fiora behind Malphite is that way she will not get the focus and she will survive longer. That way Redemption will heal more often, she will burn more targets, and the Ionic Spark will stay longer, so your Gangplank will deal more damage. And whenever you build a team with multiple tanks, try to think that way. Primary tank, only defensive stat, that's it. Secondary tank, only utility stuff like Redemption, Sunfire, Ionic Spark. And obviously the other augment you want to have, except Battle Match, is Featherweight. Here I put in Prismatic, but honestly, like in silver and gold, they're still very good. Don't worry about that. Next one, Kayle. So with Kayle, you want to play Divine Ascent. That allows her to have more attack speed, more range, and also to attack multiple targets at the same time. The way you want to play that after is to find things like Preparation. Extremely valuable for this comp since you make a lot of 3-star units, so most of the time all the units will naturally have all the stacks. And things like Duelist Heart that allows you to first have 6 duelists much faster and having that big power spike at level 7, and then after you can even push level inner to have 8 duelists. So that's why this augment is very valuable. So even if here right now it's weird because it shows 7 duelists, because this is the comp you want to have in case you don't have a duelist augment or duelist path emblem rather. So the way you want to play Kayle is like all the other 1-cost reroll comp. You want to slow roll at level 5 to find Gangplank 3, Kayle 3, and then you have to play Fiora and the 2 other super. So basically it's without Nyla, it's this comp. You have these 4 units and Kayle. Then once you have found Kayle 3, that's the most important part. It doesn't matter if you didn't find Gangplank 3, you have to push level 6. That way you can try to find Malphite 3, Lee Sin 3, and Yasuo 3, because at level 6 you have more chance to find them. And once you have found a good amount of them, you don't necessarily need to have all of them at 3 stars, especially if you have some of them that's too hard to find because it's contested or just because they don't come. You can push and play 4 duelists, then 6 duelists, and then potentially 8 duelists if you have a spatula. The items for Kayle are very simple. You want, just like Ashe, you want as much damage as possible. So Last Whisper, Deathblade, Rune's Hurricane. You don't want healing. If you have something like, I don't know, Gunblade, she will lack damage and you will lose fights because of that. Then here, main tank is Fiora, as you can see here, and secondary tank is Nyla as a healer, support at the same time. All right, next one, Lulu. Lulu reroll. So you have 2 ways to play Lulu reroll. One is with Lulu carry augment. The other is with Pantheon carry augment. They don't really change. Like the final comp is more or less the same. The only difference is that if you have Pantheon augment carry, that allows him to have more defense and deal more damage, then you want to prioritize Pantheon stuff, meaning that you want to build first Dragon's Claw and Warmog, and then after you can start thinking about stuffing your Lulu. If you have Lulu, you prefer to have blue buff and Jerry Gauntlet, and then after you can start to think about stuffing Pantheon. So that's basically just the order. The other part is like, once you have these 2 units full stuff, these are the most important ones, you want to start to stuff the other heart by giving them ways to cast their ability more often. So blue buff on Sona, Trojan on Syndra, because obviously the more they cast, the more AP your team has and the more damage you deal. That's why. So think of them as a battery of AP battery. For this comp, the best augments are Axiom Arc and Battle Mage. Axiom Arc is pretty much boosted in this comp. Like it's completely broken. If you have it, you have a high chance to make first place. And Battle Mage, as you can see, most people here benefit a lot from this augment. So yeah, one of the best augments as well, of course. Finally, you want to reroll this comp at level 5. So ignore these 3 units. You have these 5 units. That's what you want to play. Level 6, you add Sona. Level 7, you add Viego. And level 8, you add Syndra. And that's how you play this comp. All right, next one. I know that a lot of you guys like this one because I find it very satisfying to play, but it's kind of hard to play. It's stacks on stacks. Sorry for that. So the reason why stacks on stacks is difficult to play, I'm very sorry. I don't know how to pronounce it rapidly. The only reason why it's really hard to play is because it requires you to have an Anima Squad emblem. And without that, it's actually very difficult because you have your power spike too late. And because you have your power spike too late, you just die. Most of the time it's like this. So this augment, the best augments to have, like I said, is a way Anima Squad crest. It can be Ancient Archive, I think, the one that can give you emblems based on more or less what you have on the board. This one is not bad as well, but you know, like this one is the best. And Scoped Weapon, because that allows Nasus to attack from far away. So the way you want to play this comp is, again, we have to use the super, which is normal because most of the 1-cost reroll comp uses the super to have a lot more damage. And the way you want to play is when you're level 5, you play Sylas, Nasus, Malphite, Lee Sin, Gangplank, and that's why you need an Anima Squad emblem, because that way you can activate 3 Anima Squad, and that way You can have stacks, like if you kill units with your Nasus, you will get Anima Squad stacks plus stacks on Nasus. So basically the stacking team, right? You have to stack all the early to late game. That way your late game, you have enormous amount of stats and you can't lose that way. That's usually when you are level 5. You kind of want to have Anima Squad Crest as your augment in order to have the ability to play 3 super and 3 Anima Squad at level 5. And then the items is for Nasus, you want to have IE, Last Whisper, BT. Then your tank item, you want to use that on Riven. And once you have a level 5 3-star Nasus, 3-star Sylas, 3-star Gangplank, you can push level 6, you add Jinx, because you're going to use Jinx as your secondary carry. Nasus is not enough to deal enough damage to kill a late game board. You need something else like Jinx. So you have to play at level 6, you need to continue to slow roll with Malphite 3, Lee Sin 3 and Jinx 3. And once you've done that, you can pretty much push level 7, add Riven to have 5 Anima Squad. And then at level 7, try to 3-star Riven as well because she's an excellent tank. Alright, this one I think is spicy. It is spicy because it's really rare. It requires you to play with certain conditions. But honestly, I think it's really fun to play. So it's Poppy Carry. In case you don't know, Poppy Carry allows her to have a lot more armor. And that way she can literally one-shot backline units if she has enough armor. So let's just make a quick math. She has 180 armor, plus 400 armor from Defender, plus I don't remember how many base armor she has, maybe 40. So basically that makes her having like 600, I don't know, let's say with some stuff, if you have defensive armor stuff, like 650 armor, right? And she deals exactly 375% of this amount of armor with her ability. So basically she one-shots any squishy units. That's why it's really fun to play. But the way to play it is a bit different. If you really want to have a good game, you have to, of course, to play 6 defenders. And you either have to have a Gadgeteen Heart or a Defender Heart. That way you can have 6 defenders and 3 Gadgeteen at level 7. The other very good augment to have is Ascension, as the fights are really, really long anyway, so you will have the value of the Ascension. So the way you want to play it is at level 5, you want to play this comp. If you don't find Riven or Shen, it can be one of these two, it's fine. You can play with more Gadgeteen instead. The idea is to stabilize your board, find 3-star Poppy, 3-star Lulu. You can 3-star Wukong as well if he comes. If he doesn't come, don't try to chase it. It's not going to change anything. And then based on that, once you have stabilized, you start to add defenders little by little. Poppy will be here to kill the backline units, and Lulu will be here to help Poppy killing the frontline unit. So that's why it's really great together. Alright, now let's go with Kingslayer, a Sylas carry that allows Sylas to have more health and deal increased damage. So in case you don't know, Sylas deals damage based on his max health. So he has more health, so he deals more damage. Then he has increased damage as well with the augment. So that's why this one can be extremely strong against big tanks. But that's why also you need to stack a lot of Anima Squad HP, so that's why Sylas have even more HP, and that's why Warmog is his best item. If you can put 2 Warmogs, put 2 Warmogs, honestly. But if you can't, it's fine, because it might be difficult to find so many builds. Instead, you kind of want to have Gargoyle Sandplate and Dragon's Claw. More defense, Dragon's Claw allows him to have more sustain. And then, after, you really want to play with another carry, because of course Sylas is not enough. And the best carry, according to stats, is Misfortune. You have Vayne 3 as well, but Misfortune 2 is just easier to find than Vayne 3. And you want to play around this. The only problem with this comp is if you don't have 7 Anima Squad, it's very average. If you have 7 Anima Squad, you can really claim a first place, but without that, it's too hard. So that's why things like Anima Squad Heart, Emblem, and are really good. And Exile, of course, is extremely valuable because since you have a lot of, you have 2-star units, you have Anima Squad that gives a lot of HP, you have Kingslayer, so your Sylas has a lot of HP, so Exile is very valuable in this comp. The way you want to play it, reroll level 5 for Sylas, Nasus plus Jinx, so you have the 3 Anima Squad and you can stack some HP. And then after, anything you can in order to increase your damage, like, I don't know, maybe Lucian plus Ezreal, Ezreal can have the items for misfortune, something like this. But anyway, you want to prioritize items for Sylas, because honestly, if you have these 3 items on Sylas with this augment at stage 2, you can win streak with just that, because it's just too strong. All right, this is more like a for fun comp. Honestly, it doesn't work that well. I looked at the stat, it's kind of garbage, no one's playing that, but I think you can still have fun from time to time if the stars are aligned for you. It's Wukong carry. So with Cyclone, in case you don't know, it allows Wukong to have more damage because he gets more AP. But most importantly, his ability has a better range. So instead of just hitting what's around him, he has like 2 hex of range. That's kind of big, honestly. Since the meta right now is a lot about Kai'Sa, quick draw, this kind of stuff. So units who are like attacking from far away, Wukong is struggling a lot if you don't use Hacker. If we were in a meta with a lot of duelists, for instance, I think Wukong will be perfect in this meta. But since it's not the case, you need to make Wukong jump into the carries so he can more or less one-shot them. That's why you want to play Wukong with 3 Hacker and 5 mech, and you need to have like very bursty damage such as Jerry Gauntlet, Hand of Justice, so he still has some sustain, and Titan's Resolve, so he doesn't get one shot anyway. But this comp is so hard to play because, as you can see, you have to reroll for Wukong, but once you have found Wukong 3, you need to push fast in order to find Garen 2, Leona, this kind of stuff. So I would say play this comp only like you are on 2-1, you already have 4 or 5 Wukong, and you see this augment, you feel like you can find Wukong 3 almost naturally. If that's the case, play this comp, you're going to have a great game. If that's not the case, don't play this comp because you're going to have a bad game. For the augments, mecha, it's really important because it allows you to find 5 mech without hitting Leona, so you have a power spike that's much sooner than what's supposed to be, and that's really good to have. And then after, and you can, late game, you can remove Draven and put something that's much better than Draven. And 3 of the hunt, really good to have, especially if you don't have sustain. Before I continue with the other comps, I would like to talk to you about today's sponsor, Tactor. Tactor Discord is a community of gamers who want to improve their skills in their favorite games. It contains a free library of high-quality guides, updated daily. Soon, Tactor will release a website where you can learn from pro players on multiple games such as TFT and League of Legends. But you will also be able to create your own guides and monetize your gaming skills. To access these guides for free, check the link in the description. Alright, let's jump into the 2 cost carries with Camille as the first comp. So Camille carry allows her to have more base AD, not base AD, sorry. She has more attack damage, 20%, that's really good. And the first time she drops below 50 HP, she has a lot of shield based on how much AD she has. So basically, the more AD, the tankier she is, and the more damage she deals. That's it. Then, this comp you want to play with 4 admin, 3 Riftwalker, and 3 Hacker. So this comp is honestly super fun to play if you have the conditions to play. So of course you need to have Camille 3, but you will reroll as well for Pyke 3, because Pyke is such a reliable unit, and this is what you're going to reroll at level 6. Just to make it clear, at level 6 you need to have Shen, Pyke, Blitzcrank, that's already a good base. And LeBlanc. And then you can add any unit you don't really care, that's still useful to you. You can potentially have 2 Pyke 2, for instance, that's really nice, or 2 Camille 2, even though 2 Camille 2 is not that great actually. But anyway, you can have this, you reroll until you find Camille 3, Pyke, and once you have found your 3-star units, so Camille and Pyke, you push level 7 and you push level 8 in order to find Varvik, Jhin, in order to have the 4 admin. So in case you don't know, 4 admins, whatever that gives more AD, more attack speed, or more health are good. You just want these things. And for the augments, you're looking for preparation. Again, reroll comp, preparation is usually a good thing to have. And last stand, I mean, I can see that when you have last stand, all your units are getting a lot of stats from that, and you're actually using it properly. Like Pyke love having last stand. Camille loves having last stand. So yeah, this kind of stuff. Next is Draven reroll. So one thing about Draven, you have 2 augments that are good, let's say, for this comp. Like you have the two Draven augments are playable. The best one though, according to statistics, is Ruthless Blades. The other one that gives gold is nice to have, but not as good as this one. Anyway, if you have the other, you can still play this comp. That's what I wanted to say. The best augment you could ever have and ever dream of is to hit combat training at 2-1. And then at 3-2 you hit Ruthless Blade. This thing just allows Draven to stack so much AD, because if you look at the team comp, you have no other carry than Draven. There's almost only Draven that can kill units, and that's why he will get all the AD from this augment. The other good augment to have is Mecha, but that's later. So not in 2-1, not in 3-2. You want to have Mecha Prime rather at 4. That way you can have 5 mech without hitting Leona, so that makes your comp much stronger before you find this unit. It's a comp you have to reroll at level 6. You want to find Draven 3. If you find Pike 3, go ahead. If you don't find, it's fine. Don't spend too much time trying to find Pike 3. You want to have Last Whisper IE BT, and you want to stack as many Ziggs next to Draven, and that's pretty much it. Basically, Draven is 95% of the comp, and the rest are just like bots to amplify Draven's strength. You have another comp with this one where you play Super instead of Hacker, and check the stat. Hacker version, so this one, has just better win rates than the Super version, especially that now Super is slightly contested, not all the time, but from time to time it's contested. So you take less risks by trying to get these hackers, and that's why it's better. All right, next one is Ezreal with Rising Spell Force. So this comp, you have actually two ways to play this comp. One is with Vi and the other is with Ezreal. There are small differences, and I'm going to explain this. So for those who don't know, Rising Spell Force allows Ezreal to get more attack speed and more ability power whenever he uses his ultimate in a fight, and that can stack during the fight. The way you want to play it, usually, and that's the best way actually, is to hit Underground at 2-1, and then after at 3-2 to play Rising Spell Force, rather than Rising Spell Force, then Underground. Because as you know, the earlier you have 3 Underground or even more, the better your cash out, and that's more or less how you want to play. So you want to play this comp with Underground if you can, and then when you're level 6, you want to play the 3 Super, you want to play Ezreal, you want to play Vi, and here you want to have either 1 quick draw in order to have more damage on Ezreal, or if you're still in Underground, you want to maybe keep 1 Underground like Kayle, for instance, in order to keep having potentially bigger cash out. That's more or less how you want to play. You want to slow at level 6 to find Vi 3, Ezreal 3, Malphite 3, Lee Sin 3, and potentially Gangplank 3. But anyway, once you find Vi 3 and Ezreal 3, you want to push, and you want to add more and more quick draw. This is your level 8, for instance, with 4 quick draw, and if you can push level 9, of course, you add Ultimate Ezreal, because now it's not bugged anymore, so there is no weird interaction anymore, and this works properly. Again, in this comp, your primary tank is Vi, and your secondary tank is Lee Sin. So same thing, you want to have these support items on Lee Sin and not on Vi. So if instead of the Spell Force, you have Vi Augment and Relenting Force, the small difference is that there's one augment that's even better than Underground, is Portable Forge, because the own items such as Anima Visage and Death Defiance are just like insanely strong on Vi. Even like Eternal Winter is far from being bad, and honestly, you can abuse this. Vi will be unkillable, and people will swear to you because they will hate your comp. So now let's go with Fiora. So Fiora is a bit difficult because if you have only 6 duelists, this comp is pretty much average. But if you have 8 duelists, it's actually insanely strong. So that's why if you don't want to force it and kind of gamble it, what I can suggest you is first you could try to get a Duelist Heart or Emblem or whatever at 2-1. And then if the hero augment 3-2 allows you to have a 2-star unit, like Fiora, then you can pick Grand Challenge that allows Fiora to deal more damage based on her maximum health, and also she will sustain from that. Then the last good augment to have is something like Verdant Veil, because one of the biggest weakness of duelists is the CC, the crowd control, because if they get crowd control at the beginning of the fight, they don't have the time to stack all this attack speed and, you know, like win the fight that way. So this is why this augment is one of the best for the duelists. So the way you want to play this is at level 6. At level 6, you want to play this comp, 6 duelists with Fiora, and you want to reroll for Fiora 3. I forgot to put the 3 stars here. You want Fiora 3, that's really important. Once you found Fiora 3 with these items, you should be able to stabilize your board like very hard
But what you have to remember is that this comp, this Fiora, will never be enough to win late game fights. And that's why at level 7 and 8, you will add Annie and Twisted Fate. So you add Annie because you already have a lot of Duelists, right? That way you can activate Oxforce on Fiora, and also you can activate Space Singler to Twisted Fate, because Twisted Fate is the one that will help your Fiora to win the late game. If you don't play around Twisted Fate, you will lose. And since you have a lot of Duelists, but you have almost no Spell Slingers, the items you want to have on Twisted Fate is Static, Rabadon Death Cap. You don't want something else, you want flat AP. Because if you have something like Archangel, the fights are too fast. You will not have the time to stack the AP. If you have something like Deal Gauntlet, cool, but you can crit, but you don't have a lot of base AP, so he will not deal a lot of damage. So that's why you want to have Rabadon, then Giant Slayer to have amplification damage on tanks. And for Fiora, it's very important to have Warmog, because like I said, this augment allows her to deal a lot of damage based on her max HP. So having Warmog allows her to have much more damage. And Nyla is your secondary carry, so Locate of the Islands already. It's always the best item you can have on Duelist anyway. So let's talk about Jinx. It's kind of similar to Fiora in a sense that it's better to have Anima Squad Heart or Emblem at 2-1 than play Jinx after. Because one of the win conditions to finish first with this comp is to have 7 Anima Squad. And actually, the more Anima Squad emblems you have, the better. That's why Ancient Archives is still one of the best augment to have. Because if you have, of course, Anima Squad, you can remove Sylas the Clown and you can add much better late game units. So the way you want to play this is, of course, at level 6, you want to slow roll for Jinx. You want to activate Anima Squad. Ideally, you already have +1 Anima Squad, so you can easily reach 5 Anima Squad without having a weird board. And then once you find Jinx 3, you push level 7, you push level 8 in order to have 7 Anima Squad. And then at level 8, you slow roll or you try to stabilize with Riven 3, which is another win condition, let's say, of this comp that allows you to have a much better front line, and that allows Jinx to have all the time she needs to kill units. So for items, you want Pure Shojin Spell Crit and Hand of Justice on Jinx. Since the last change, because in case you didn't know, last patch she got less mana, max mana, so now it's better to stuff her with this kind of stuff. Before that it was more like AD, but now you want AP on her. And Riven, you want these items, especially if you manage to have Riven 3, like she's going to not only tank a lot, but also deal a good amount of damage. Never underestimate her. Oh yeah, and by the way, any leftover items like Static are nice to have on Misfortune. She has Ace, so she can still be useful. Alright guys, Cleansing Safeguard Listen. This augment is not dead, but it's much harder to play than before. So again, it's better to have +1 heart before picking Cleansing Safeguard. So if you have a heart, I guess it's called like this, into 1, then after you can potentially try to get Cleansing Safeguard. Even though I would say most of the time, if you have heart, it's better to pick something like Power Grid Sona. We will talk about that later. But if you can't have it, because somehow you were not lucky with your rolls or whatever, Cleansing Safeguard can still make you have an okay game. You can still win with it actually, but only if you have +1 heart. The other best augment to have is Big Friend. As you can see, since you have a lot of 3 stars, everyone is super tanky. It will make the fights last so long, and honestly, you will stack so much AP with this. Another augment you can have as well is, of course, First Aid Kit, because you will have a lot of heal, you will have a lot of shield. So yeah, First Aid Kit also a very good augment to have. So the way you want to play it is around super at level 6, sorry. You want to stabilize your board with Sona, ideally Sona 2, and the 3 super and hearts, so you can stack the hearts. And then after, you want to stuff Listen. If you have Cleansing Safeguard, you want to stuff Listen first with Warmog, Dragon's Claw, Bramble Vest. Then you want to stuff your Sona with blue buff and offensive stuff. And then also you can have Malphite as your secondary carry with Redemption, Sunfire Cape, Ionic Spark. Once you have found Listen 3, Malphite 3, and you can push level 7 to have more chance to find Sona 3, you can start to add more hearts or Oxforce based on what you're lacking in your team. and then once you have Sona 3, you push and you add 6 hearts. Rock Solid Malphite is still playable. It is still playable, but you have to play very carefully. Again, like, these are very specific comp, you can't force every time, but when the criteria are met, you have to recognize that this is the moment to play this comp and claim your first place or second place. So for Rock Solid, just like Lee Sin, just like Fiora, just like everything, best of the best is to have Mascot Crest first, and then after you can play Rock Solid. If you do the opposite way, if you find and you start with Rock Solid, then you cannot gamble your game and you hope to get a mascot emblem later through an augment or through a spatula. So what I'm showing to you is the safest way to have a good game with this comp, but of course, if you start with Rock Solid, you still have a good chance to have a good game, but you somehow take more risks. So in order to play this comp, you want to have 3 super, 3 Riftwalker, 6 mascots. And that's why 6 mascots is hard to achieve without mascot crest. Or you have to play at level 9 in order to have these things, and most of the time you're not so going to survive level 9 without this team, because you need to have this team to survive to level 9, so it's kind of weird. But anyway, by the way, here you see 2 mascot emblems. It's just that I added one because actually Zac is not counted as a mascot, so that's why I just added one in order to show the 6 mascot, but you don't have to have a mascot on Jhin. Okay, so this comp you want to play at level 6, slow roll for Malphite 3, Lee Sin 3. If you find Gangplank 3, go ahead, but it's fine if you don't find it, because what's important is to push level 7 and start to add Vex and Jhin, because you really want to have your Zac as soon as possible, and then at level 8 you can start to have potentially Nunu if you find it, in order to activate the 6th mascot. For the stuff, you want to have Gargoyle Stun Plate on Malphite. You want to position that way so Malphite gets all the units around him and one-shot them. So that's why you want Gargoyle Stun Plate. You want Warmog because you have so many mascots, so having Warmog allows him to have a lot of health, healing I would say, and Redemption to say more healing and damage reduction. Apart from that, you have 2 augments which are extremely good to have. Jewel Lotus, that way Malphite can deal even more damage. The other one that's kind of broken as well is First Aid Kit. Since you have so much healing with mascot, your Malphite is almost invincible, and if the guy in front of you doesn't have something like Sunfire or anti-heal, they just can't kill you. They just can't, and that's why it's broken. Next one is Sivir. So Sivir is kind of similar. You really want to have an Infiniteam crest, and actually you want a crest, not a heart, because that way you can give it to Garen later. So Sivir reroll it's actually better if you have the Sivir support augment that allows her to have more attack damage and even more whenever she casts her ability. The other one that gives gold is not that great. It doesn't make your team stronger, it just gives you more gold. This actually makes your Sivir stronger, and all the sure shots as well. So the way you want to play it, you want to stabilize your board at level 6 with 5 Infiniteams if you manage to have an emblem. If you don't have an emblem, it will be harder to stabilize with 3 Infiniteams, but basically try your best, I would say. Then you want to reroll to find Sivir 3, and then once you've found Sivir 3, you can push level 7, level 8, and then you can start to add the late game units such as Garen, Samira, Ezreal, and Twisted Fate just to have the 5 Infiniteam. But basically this kind of stuff. I don't know why I have a Rammus. I guess it's like, yeah, these 2 units, Rammus and Fiddlesticks, literally you put whatever you find. The idea is like to find utility champions. It can be Janna, it can be Urgot, it can be whatever you found first. And about the items, Garen, Infiniteam Spat, probably the best thing you can do on Garen. So you have 2 Garens, so 2 massive stuns, and then massive tanks as well. And then after you can have some Ziggs, because the problem with this stuff is that Sivir, we kinda lack a bit of attack speed, so having Ziggs is always good, especially if you have 3 sure shot and that all of them are buffed with this augment. Alright, let's go to the 3 cost. So this is very dark secret strategy. It's Alistar carry. So in case you don't know, Alistar carry allows him to have more max HP, and what he will do is his stun will have a range. It's not just one target, it's more targets, and he will deal much more damage to the primary target based on his Alistar's max health. So honestly for this comp, it's very similar to Malphite, but it's Alistar, and you want to play with 6 mascot, 3 Riftwalker, and 3 super. That's why you want to have a mascot crest before to make sure that you can achieve the 6 mascots. Again, here the mascot on Jhin is just to show that Zac is not having the mascot emblem. And then your secondary carry is Vex. You want to play Vex carry with blue buff, Rabadon, and Giant Slayer. You want to slow roll this comp at level 7, so you can find Alistar 3 and Vex 3. And potentially as well pack 3. That way, if you have Jhin 2, pack 3, Vex 3, your Zac will be 3-star as well. That's great to have because he has a lot of stats that way. And the best one to have, apart from these two, of course, is First Aid Kit, because like you have so much healing that they will make your team kind of unkillable. All right, Gnar. So Gnar is not a secret comp. Rather, what I'm going to try to show you here, it's a less known version of Gnar. And it is only playable if you have a Gadgeteen crest that allows you to have one Gadgeteen emblem that you're going to put on Sona. And with this comp, you want to play Gnar 3 stars, Sona 3 stars, then Hackers, then 5 Gadgeting. You know the deal, right? So this comp comes from China, and it's actually broken for one reason. Sona, with this stuff, with Gadgeting, can heal a lot all of your units with her ability, right? And because they're already super tanky and difficult to kill because they have so much damage reduction from Gadgeting, it actually makes them so tanky and unkillable. That's it. And you can just win the fight that way because they can't kill your Gadgeting units. So the best augment to play this comp is Gnar. I think this one is the support that allows to deal more damage to any units that Gnar attacked. So that's why this comp is good. And you want to play with Poppy as your main tank. So that's why you put 3 items on her. You have 3 items on Gnar, 3 items on Sona, and whatever leftover items or items from Gadgeting, you put it on Nunu. The reason why second wind is so strong is, like I said earlier, since your team tanks so much thanks to the damage reduction, making them heal back all that damage taken is like kind of cheating. Alright, Jax. So Jax, if you don't have 8 brawlers, it's not that great, but it's playable. So this is why you prefer to have 8 brawlers with brawler heart before you find Jax with Relentless Assault. That way you can make sure you have 8 brawlers. So the way to play this comp is to slow roll at level 7, where you can find Riven 3 and Jax 3. With the admin, you want to have more AP, and that's pretty much it. You don't want more attack speed because this augment already gives a lot of attack speed to Jax. You don't want to have AD because anyway Jax is more like AP than AD, and this kind of stuff. You want to have Ascension as another augment because your team is so difficult to kill that the fights are going to be long, very long. So Ascension will make your team very strong at the late game of the fight. If you don't have Relentless Assault, you can have actually Varvig, which is, I think it's well fed. No, sorry, it's Big Data. Yeah, you can play also with Big Data. That allows your team to have more damage every time they have 100 health. And with so many 3-star units, with so many brawlers, you can expect that yes, Jax will hit very hard. So this is another augment you can decide to have if you don't want to have the Jax or if you can't find it. And obviously if you have scoped weapon, you can put Jax in the back lane, remove the rapid fire cannon, and add another offensive item, I don't know, such as Rabadon, Ginzu, I mean this kind of stuff. Morgana carry. So Fear is Freedom, that allows Morgana to have one more binding that stuns their target longer. So if you want to play Morgana carry, you have to have this augment. If you don't have this augment, don't even try, it will never work. With this augment, you want to play with Riftwalker, and you want to rely on Jhin as your secondary carry, because obviously Morgana will never deal enough damage to kill a one late game team. You need to have another carry next to her, and it will be Jhin. So the way you want to play this team is at level 7, again, reroll for Morgana 3, find Jhin 2, find the Riftwalker, find the Renegade, and find a tank. Leona here is your level 8, for instance. So that way you can stuff your Echo with defensive item, put only offensive item on Jhin. You don't need how is it called, Last Whisper, because you already have Morgana to remove the armor of the opponents. So that's why Jhin, you really want to have Deathblade, IE, and either Godbreaker or Giant Slayer. You don't care about removing armor because that's the job of Morgana. And with this comp, you can pretty much melt any front line super fast and then win the fight thanks to that. Two really good augments to have to play this comp is Jewel Lotus, because as you can see, Morgana doesn't have any way to deal crit damage with this stuff, so that allows her to enhance even more her damage. And then 3 of the hand, because as you can see as well, Jhin and Morgana don't have any way to sustain from any AoE damage, so having 3 of the hand can help them lasting longer in fights. Okay, another threat, Rammus. So Rammus is a bit more difficult to play than Morgana because it requires you, and if you don't have it, don't play it. It requires you to have a defender crest before finding spiked share, because this allows Rammus to become a defender. And in case you didn't know, the augment plus his ability both deal damage based on his armor. So if you have an insane amount of armor, Rammus will deal an insane amount of damage. Just make the math. He has 400 armor from defender, right? He has a base plus 100 armor because he's 3 stars, plus he has some armor because he's a unit, right? So you can expect him to have around 600 armor. So this ability allows Rammus to deal 150% of that, meaning 900 magic damage every 2 seconds around him. And that's not his spell. When he casts his ability, he will deal a huge AoE, that's 200% of his armor, so that's 1200 damage. So you combine these two, he's literally a nuclear bomb. And that's why this augment before Rammus is important. If you don't have it, don't even try it, because you are betting to have maybe this later and you might lose before you even have a defender emblem. So if you want to play this comp, you try to play strong board or whatever, you try to survive until level 7. Level 7 you want to have 6 defenders. It's usually easy if you have of course this emblem. Maybe it's hard to find Garen and you'll play Poppy until you find Garen, because Garen is an excellent unit to have, of course, once you have it. Then after you have the choice, you have either, I'm thinking of Samira, but honestly any 4-cost unit can be good here. Samira to have extra damage, can be Orion Soul, can be Misfortune. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Just something that can help Rammus finish off targets he didn't one-shot. That's pretty much it. And on the Rammus, you want to have Warmog and Dragon's Claw. You can put more armor, but honestly, when he already has 600 armor, having plus 30 armor will not change anything. Instead, put a Dragon's Claw so he will not get melted by AP carries, and Warmog so he has more health and more durability. That's pretty much it. Riven with Reverberation. I'm sorry if the accent is not good here. Basically, it allows her to have more AP, and whenever she uses her shield, she will also shield the lowest health ally. So what's really important to understand with this augment is that this augment is garbage unless you have Riven 3 with 3 items. So it's kind of a weird position where this augment doesn't make you that stronger until you find Riven 3 where it's completely boosted. So the best way to not gamble your game is to start with +1 Anima Squad. That way you can still have a strong board without finding Riven 3, at least during the mid game, and that allows you to buy a lot of time to find Riven 3. And this is the safest way to play this comp. This is the condition to start forcing this comp. If you force this comp because you have this, but you don't have Anima Squad, most of the time you will not have a very good game. So that's why it's really important. And another thing as well, Ancient Archives, really good to have, because that can help you to remove Sylas the Clown and have a better late game unit. So the best way to play this comp, at level 7, you slow roll for Riven 3, but you also want to play Misfortune as your main carry next to Riven. Misfortune is such a good unit, right? If you don't want to play Misfortune, or if you don't have only AD items and not AP items, you can play Vayne 3, even without Spread Shot. She can still be a good carry if you have Riven 3, whatever augment it is. Reverberation, that's it. All right, Time Knife Shen. Okay, this augment is not dead, even though it's completely now balanced compared to how it was like 2 weeks ago, I think, something like this. This augment is still good, but you have to play very specifically. And in fact, you have to play with Rammus again and Defender. So I'm gonna say it, play this augment, play this comp, only if you have Defender crest. You put that on Rammus, you play 6 defenders, Rammus is going to nuke the front line, while Shen is going to sneakily go behind like a ninja and one-shot any squishy unit. And if you have Axiom Arc, he is going to kill units, he's going to kill 3 units, then have all his mana and kill 3 units again. So yeah, like if you have this setup, it's probably the most cancerous setup you can ever have on TFT right now. Like honestly, go to hell if you play this, but you will go to hell while smiling. So yeah, and items for Shen, RFC, Protector's Vow, QSS, that way he will always hit correctly. And Rammus, same as earlier, Rammus with defensive items. Alright, next one. Power Grid with Sona. I already talked about it earlier. Like most of the time you prefer to have Sona instead of Lee Sin, Cleansing Safeguard. But let's say that this time you managed to find Power Grid that allows Sona to have a bit more AP, but most importantly to have one more target to whenever effect of her spell. So if you play this comp, you don't want to play super. Instead, you want to have a very powerful frontline like Ox Force, and you want to play 4 hearts. You can play 6 hearts if you manage to have +1 heart emblem, but if you don't, you can still have very good results with 4 hearts. This comp is not very secret. You can find it from time to time in your games, but it's something that you should always remember, but that you can play this if you have like Power Grid. Your base tank is Echo, and your secondary tank / secondary carry is Viego, so that's why you can put things like Ionic Spark, and if you have more items you can put Gunblade or anything else, because he will get a lot of AP thanks to hearts. Obviously, first aid kit, the most broken augment for this comp. Everyone has shield or heal, so yes. And second wind, because Ox Force really like to have things like second wing. It always almost give back a lot of health to them. So yeah, second wind is a really good augment when you play an Ox Force frontline. Pressure Vein, that's the other only comp you want to play if you have combat training. If you can't have Draven, combat training is absolutely gorgeous when you play Vein Spreadshot. But it's fine if you don't have it. You don't need to have combat training in order to play Vein Spreadshot, because as you know already, this comp is really good. However, I wanted to show something very important. Is like, I think a lot of people are playing Spreadshot incorrectly. Most of them play with 6 duelists or even 8 duelists. But according to statistics in Diamond Plus, the best comp to play Spreadshot is with Anima Squad. And I'm going to tell you this. 5 Anima Squad has a better win rate than 8 duelists Vein Spreadshot. 5 Anima Squad. So imagine if you have 7 Anima Squad. That requires you an emblem, of course, but it just shows that this comp is much better than playing with 6 duelists. The way you want to play it is around Riven, your main tank, and Vayne, your main carry. These 2 you want to reroll at level 7 and find 3 stars. And after you want to have, of course, the 5 Anima Squad, and you want to build around it. So you add Fiora for duelist, and you add Alistar for Ox Force plus Mascot, you add Echo for Aegis, and you have these 2 units for having Anima Squad. Best item for Vayne, of course, Spear of Shojin, Infinity Edge, and Giant Slayer. If you have these 3, she will deal insane amount of damage, and that's what you want. Alright, I think this is the last comp of the 3 cost. It's about Vex carry. So one thing about this comp is that it's not secret, it's not difficult to play, and actually you don't even need to have a Vex augment to play this comp. Obviously, if you have Vex, especially the Vex carry, that's even better. But if you don't have it, it's fine, you can still play this comp. Because you have a lot of good augments with this one. Axiom Arc, broken. First Aid Kit, broken. And Mascot Crest to allow you to have 6 mascots. So yeah, that's easily without keeping Nasus, or if you don't find Nunu, you can still have 6 mascots. You want to play with Super. The only thing is that you can't spend too much time at level 6 to find 3-star Malphite, or Lee Sin or Gangplank. Instead, you want to push level 7 and throw roll for Vex 3, potentially Alistar 3 if you find. If it doesn't come, it's fine, don't try to rush it. If you can find Pike 3, same, that allows you to have a 3-star Zac. If you don't, it's fine, you can still have good game without it. I forgot to put the defensive items. Well, defensive items, put on your, if you have 3-star Alistar, put everything on Alistar. If not, then Lee Sin, Malphite, like, there will be good defensive item holders. Alright. For the 4 costs, here it's a bit specific. I want to talk about threat level maximum. It's a really good augment, but you have to play it only, of course, if you find a lot of threats. So the best augment to play this comp is Instinction event from Orion Soul that allows him to deal even more damage. That's why it's really great, because Orion Soul is your main carry. You can also have Scoped Weapon to help your Belvet deal more damage without being touched. That's why that's a really good augment to have on her. Your main tank will be Aatrox. That's why you will put items on him. And honestly, if you have threat level maximum, don't be afraid to put 2 Rammus, because they will both have a lot of HP. And then of course you need to find Fiddlestick and Urgot, which are going to be the most difficult ones to find, but eventually you might find them. One thing that's maybe not well spread or well known is Static Morgana. I know you're going to say, but Morgana is already removing the magic resistance. Why put Static? Thing is, Static will deal damage to multiple targets, right? So these multiple targets will be having less magic resistance, fine, but they will also lose their armor, because Morgana shred any unit she damages with their items. So that's why this is good. If you have Static on Morgana, you don't need to have Last Whisper on Belvet, and you can build a Belvet with more damage or more sustain or whatever you find. This is a very good comp, and you can even play, I would say, without threat level maximum, but it's not as good. It's really not as good. Like the 66 max HP per threat, it's really big to have. And finally, the final comp I wanted to show you, this one is very specific, but holy moly, it's so fun to play. It's full power to sword. It's the Garen carry augment. It allows him to have less mana in order to use his ability, but he will deal more damage based on his AD, and however he will lose the ability to stun targets. So you want to play with this with 5 mecha, with 3 super. He can literally one-shot a board, an entire board. That's why it's so fun. The items you want on him is Bloodthirster. That way he can sustain from the damage. IE, so he can crit on his ability. That's insane. And Quicksilver, because that allows him not to, you know, like be stunned and not dealing damage and just dies before doing anything. It's really important to have Quicksilver. And also it gives a bit more crit chance, so Garen will deal more damage because he has IE. You really want to have a Mecha Prime Crest that allows you to have a complete board without finding Leona. And if you find Leona, you can remove Draven the Clown. That serves nothing and add something else. The other way to play this comp is with Gadgeteen. So if you have Gadgeteen Crest, you can remove the super and you play with 5 Gadgeteen. And obviously you put, instead of Quicksilver, you put Gadgeteen emblem on Garen. That kind of replaces the super in terms of damage, and that allows you to have potentially other side carries that can help Garen one-shotting things. So this comp is really for fun, but honestly, if you have the good setup, it's really good. It's really good, but it requires you to have these kind of emblems, so it's not...
You might have noticed that I didn't put one comp in this list, and actually it's Yasuo reroll comp. I would say I didn't put it because it's not necessarily hidden anymore, since I made a video about it and I explained exactly how you can play this comp, but it's still a comp that requires some conditions if you want to play it. So in case you're interested in this and play maybe the most broken comp right now, you should check this video that's appearing now, because I explain exactly how you can play it. And I think with that makes a total of 30 comps you can play whenever you want if the conditions are aligned for you on TFT. With that being said, I will see you in 3 weeks because I'm going to holidays right now and I'll be back to make more TFT content. Until then, let's see how far you can climb in the ladder.